Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ellen. So I know we're all sick of painting summer. Let's get into the fall. So you know what? Yes, let's do it. Gonna do a nice fall mystical landscape. I gave you a reference photo for this. I talk about how I changed it up a little bit. Talk about how I bleed in the color, make the background, all that good stuff, and ways that you can change it yourself. I didn't add the fence in there, but you know, you can do it like I said, do it your own way. You can change the colors even. You can make it a little more green and less yellow and orange, etc., etc. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. These are great, fun, wet and wet techniques to learn how to paint something that looks like very atmospheric and mystical like this. Even if you're a beginner, you can do this. And if you've been painting for a while, it's fun to do something like this as well. You know, it's always fun to challenge yourself. If you have any questions, like I said, leave in the comment section. Also, check out my Patreon. I have ad read videos, traceables, exclusive tutorials, and a live stream on the top tier. It's just a place people go and support my channel, which I really appreciate. We also have a private Facebook group where we do weekly challenges and monthly giveaways. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. We also get, Patreons also get first dibs on watercolor workshops and retreats, so kind of pays to be a patron. And you can find out the information in the link below and the description box. Just click those words, show more. So, are you ready to paint some fall stuff? Because I know I am. So let's dive right into this fall landscape. All right, so let me go over my supplies. I have like an 8x10 piece of Arch 100% cotton cold pressed paper, taped down with Scotch Magic tape. Well, just some cardboard so I can move it around like this. Paints, of course, everything's in the description box below. Just click those words, show more, and you'll find everything there. I'll be using this Umbra, Princeton Umbria liner brush for like nice little branches from a tree. Kind of wash in the paint with, I could use my paint, any kind of floppy brush, mop brush. This is number 6 Neptune. I also have a number 12 Neptune series. So I give you a photograph or inspiration that I found, like the misty trees. I don't know if I'm necessarily going to stick one of these kind of trees in here. I might do like a nice, beautiful, bright colored yellow orange tree or something in here. I don't know if I like that. See, this is when you find some cool photographs for the look and the inspiration, like the road and the composition, but not necessarily everything in it. So if we remove this tree, put more of like this kind of tree, change it up. So for the misty part of it, you know, we want to mix up some paint. Really, it's kind of like gray with blue. Just mix up, you know, loosen up some Paynes gray here. Maybe a little ultramarine blue in the background of those misty trees. There's some green in there. So we've got some Prussian blue and a little bit of yellow, cadmium yellow deep. Now it's bright green. You keep adding the blue and a little bit of the brown, burnt umber here. And more blue. I'm getting to get the screen a little bit darker, like a forest green. And then more blue. I'll even tap a little Paynes gray in there. All right. We have our yellow. We'll get that loose as well, and some cadmium red light, which is great because it can mix with the yellow, make a nice orange, all that good stuff. You see I'm swirling around, just cleaning up my brush. So I've kind of just drawn in the simple, like the hill that's kind of going down here and the road. There's really no need to worry about exact anything. And the sky is going to mostly be gray. We're going to kind of try and bleed in some of those trees. So get this top half right here where your little hill is to the sky wet. Not super wet, but nice and damp, so you can bleed color but not make it crazy. So I'm going in here and getting it nice and damp, and we're going to be flipping it around to make some nice little trees. Flip it around, going to hold it up like this. Now we can grab some of that Paynes gray, and you kind of just go like this. Just going to go down, tap it, and kind of push it downward. You know, I'm just doing little taps. I'm going to add a little green to some of this. You'll start to see the trees. It's a little too pointy, so I might go in, just kind of push the paint around a little bit. See, I'm grabbing my Paynes gray, just kind of pushing it around a little bit. Another way is if you can flip it upside down again. You know, they look like spider trees. the little line, a little thicker paint. Won't move as much. It's like a line, and you can kind of wiggle back and forth to get that pine tree. There's a line and wiggle back and forth, leaving some space in between, right? And it's feeling light right now. You want it light. You want to keep it that super light in the background. Again, a little line down, just kind of wiggle back and forth with the tip of your brush to get that pine tree. You can kind of mush it like I did with this one. This one's got a little space in between. And this kind of just like melds, like the outside of the background of this part. You can't really tell if it's a tree or not. You can kind of mush it around like this. Play around like that. Just background. See? Really so damp and light. You can kind of get a little bit darker and get the tips of the trees back here. Again, making it look more realistic if you want those pine trees kind of like you see in the photograph. But I think you don't need to do it necessarily. You can get a little bit darker by adding some green like they show here. I'll get my green a little bit darker. I'm just going to tap in some of this deep dark green, maybe some brown in with that. Now it's just kind of sitting there. I'm going to keep tapping it. Boop, 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 boop. While it's still damp, and let it bleed a little bit. If it doesn't move, you kind of lift it up and kind of push it like this. Play around with it. It's starting to move now. It needs to be a little bit wetter, so I'm going to get a little more wetness so it's really like tea. And start tapping in that color. See, now it really moves. Look, then you have your green like that. Isn't that cool? Do some over here too. Equal opportunity employer on either side. I love it. Just a little green. It just adds a little something something. I'm going to do a little brown in here too. And that's all you do for that nice little misty tree. And the brown. I want the brown to lead a little bit. Not too much. I'll move it up. Boop. Just a little color. Make it a little fun. I have a little separation happening in here. You don't have to do that. I kind of chose to do that. If I wanted to not do that, I can kind of fill it in a little bit more here. Do. So that part you want to kind of like let it sit. If you want a little bit darker again with the green, going in here, just tapping in the color. It's going to do its bleedy thing. You can kind of manipulate it with the brush, the tip. Again, making those wonderful tree-like marks. But I think tapping it just kind of does its own thing. We're going to let it sit. Don't touch it anymore. And even though I have a little bit over here, we're going to let this dry. And then we'll come back and start painting the rest. Also, before we let it dry, if you want to go and start to paint the road a little bit. So we've got some Paynes gray loose, we've got some burnt umber loose, and we'll just do that. We'll get a little bit of this road. Again, don't have to follow it to a T. I'm just going to loosely sticking in this brown, a little bit of gray. Still kind of keeping it light. Don't have to keep it exactly you can see in the photograph. We're just putting in a nice little road. Just like so. Just really simple. I might get a little bit darker down here with some brown and a little bit of orange. And the road has like a dark color in between. You know, sometimes when you look at a photograph, you follow it to the T. I'm kind of trying not to do that. I'm putting some of my colors that I want to put in. And I'm just going to fill in some browns over here. Really loose. Just like so. Maybe a little more red, orange. So I'm grabbing some cadmium red light, throwing that in, and some burnt umber. Just like that. Yeah, maybe a little more Paynes gray up top here. Don't want to fuss it too much. Just a simple color road. Oh, got a little dark. That's okay. We can lift right away. Get a little gray up in here. If you want a little gray down here, play around with it a little bit. I didn't like this little edge here, so I want to kind of remove that. You just kind of lift up your paint and remove it. All right, so once you just kind of fill in this a little bit, then we let everything dry, we'll start to fill in the sides. By the way, you can make this complete winter scene. See how this is just snow? I didn't think about that, right? You can put some trees in and have like a little shadow, and you've got a winter scene. Dual purpose kind of tutorial here today. So we're going to start to bleed in some oranges, yellows, and we don't have to, like, again, follow this to a T. I'm just going in here and grabbing yellows. Kind of like really kind of loose, wet paint, but not a lot on my brush, so you get some dry brush happening. Throwing in some of this orange color tones. Gonna put it down in here. Again, really loose. It doesn't have to be perfect. Gonna put this color in here. And the photograph shows more green over here, but I'm putting in my yellows because that's what I feel like doing. Just throwing in this color here. Here. Mine's a little more vibrant. That's what I wanted. And while it's still damp, we can start to blend in and bleed some browns and some grays. So we got some burnt umber happening here. I'll throw in some Paynes gray, a little dark on this edge here. A little bit dark over here. Grab that cadmium red light. Throw some of that in here. See, we're building. And I'll go back and grab that cadmium red and yellow, mix it, make more orange kind of happening here. See, just a little bit darker. And over in here. Now, it looks like a little dark mess right now, so I'm going to lift some of it and put some bright yellow in there. You can make it subtle or darker, whatever you want. It will dry later, by the way. So I'm just kind of lifting and tapping back on my paper towel, just some of the color here. I feel like it's a little too much. And going down in here in the hill, just fill that in. It's a misty, dark road. You want to throw in some green color, go right ahead. Here's some nice yellow mixed in with that Prussian blue, nice little bit of green, be like a little touch. You see some in the photograph. It'll be green in there. Maybe some green up in here. Just give it some variety. And I'm going to fill in some of the dark color down here. Some orange. Cadmium red deep, light. And the burnt umber. It's kind of like really dark and mysterious right here, isn't it? Loving it. Loving it. So, there's a tree kind of happening here. It's a little bit orange. I'm going to loosen up this orange paint that I mixed up. And I'm just going to tap around here. Now it's dry in the background. So how do you get it to look like a little mystical quality? We're going to just tap the paint and we're going to diffuse it. See, I tap this orangey kind of color. It's thick sitting on there. I'm going to clean off our brush, grab a little water. And we're going to just mush the edges. See? Tap it back in the paper towel. You're just kind of mushing around the edges. Softening up the orangey color. If you want to get a little bit darker, some deeper pigment thrown in there, do that. If you want a little brown thrown in there, just want to do that, a little brown thrown in there. Just tapping a little bit. Even a little Paynes gray in the dark area here. Woo. So you've got some orange and browns happening, right? Now I didn't do the green tree over here. We're going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put like an orange tree, a little thicker, maybe add a little bright yellow. I'm going to add like two. I'm going to add one over here. So really kind of blobby. See that? And then we're going to diffuse it again. Get my paper towels. So, water. Just kind of mush around the edges. Tap it back in the paper towel. Mush. Get some more water. You see how we're doing this? tapping, whooshing, tapping, diffusing the edge. Because we're painting over the color. I want it soft. And we can add some dark color to it also. So here we get some brown and some Paynes gray. Just tapping around that. And get a little darker down in here too. Make it a little more interesting. Like a little forest back here. Get rid of that white. See? Oh, interesting. Now this is kind of goofy right here. But we're going to have some nice branches coming out from the other tree. So it'll look nice. And I'm going to go back in here, a little yellow. Okay. I'm going to add a little brown down in here because it's going to be a shadow from the tree trunks. And similar with the tree that's going to be over here. And I can add a little bit on the road. I'm going to just water it down a little bit though. Just tapping a little brown in here. Adding some orange and yellow. Everything in the kitchen sink. It all makes sense soon. And again, if it's hard edges, you just kind of just diffuse it again like I showed you 5 seconds ago. Yeah. And Paynes gray. Mine's a little too dark. We'll fix that in a second. And it will also dry light. Okay, so we're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna add a little more orange in here. And you can tippy tap a couple little like leaves with the tip of your brush. I'll grab some nice pretty red and do that. Just adds a little extra something. And that's that. And we're gonna let this dry. I'm gonna go in and add our branches and the fence. So this is where the liner brush comes into handy. Burnt umber and some Paynes gray, make it nice and dark. And I have that pencil line where I had my tree here. And I'll go and put that up. And we're going to do the little branches. We'll be adding some orange to these. See, just little branches, some a little bigger. Kind of coming out. And we'll diffuse some orange on there. And there's another tree here, which is the one we painted in the background. And you'll see some branches coming out from there. Kind of break them up. And you see it going to the top. And same thing with this one. So you have like the tree trunk kind of breaking. And then we have little branches coming off. Like that. Same thing down in here. Let's put some trees back here. And here. So get a nice little trunk here going and then broken. And little branches off that. Just like so. Put some trees back here that are like already lost its leaves. Get that trunk in there. And then you can just take some, see, I'm going to put this little couple more branches kind of sticking outward here. And wonky little wiggly ones up here. And then we use this brush for like the orange color tones and do a little wonky, see, tippy tap. Maybe a little more on the red branches kind of happening out here. See, kind of wiggle that. Put some like leaves that are still there on that branch. I'm going to go over the brown black branch itself. I'm just tapping it, going out like that. And really tiny ones out in the distance. And you can kind of mush those so it looks like they faded a little bit. So I'd mush it a little bit and paper towel. Boop, 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 so it's really light. See that? Same thing with these guys. Just go in and tap some little teeny leaves with the darker, thicker, little red, yellow, orange. Just tippy tapping with my teeny little liner brush. Get that effect. And going over here, the branches. And the bottom of the ground, go back and grab my browns. I'm gonna do some little grasses and some shadow. See? And kind of go like this on its side a little bit. And then go to the road. And in the background here, similar. Maybe it's a little too dark. You can add some browns and oranges. Get a little shadow. Let's change it up a little bit. Put some grasses in the front. And I'll do some dry brushing. I'm going to put some grasses up here. You can splatter some paint down here. Woohoo! See, grasses going over the road. Just kind of wiggle this brush. Really kind of simple. Dry brush. Grab any kind of brush that's not been used. And grab some browns. Kind of thicker paint. You can tap it on a paper towel and you can kind of just roll it for the road to get that like gravel kind of look, because this paper is cold pressed and it has a tooth to it. You just put a little paint. It has that gravelly road look. That might get a little too harsh, so I'm gonna just tone it down by watering it a little bit and lifting it. It happens. Just tap it a little bit, diffuse that color, you know. And then same thing with the rest of it. You kind of just roll, see, with your brush. Get some red color, mix it some brown. Play around with it. Really didn't take much effort to do this. You can kind of go in here and do some little dry brushing in the background, creating like a really nice sweet little fall foliage painting. Play around, guys. Doesn't have to look exactly like a photograph. I changed it up a little bit, adding a little bit of green back here, a little more yellow, orange in here, some more bright yellow. That one got a little too much, so I'll just remove it a little bit. Again, dry brush some of the browns, like for grass. Have fun. It's the name of the game. If you did want to splatter a little bit down here, I suggest you cover up the areas you don't want wrecked, right? I'm taking this, so maybe I'll go over the road a little bit. I don't want splatter everywhere, right? So I'm going to take that bright cadmium yellow light, water it down a little bit, and splatter a little bit here and here. And where it's splattered, you can go back in and add a little mushing. So it has like almost like a poppies kind of hanging out in the field. Just adds a little something. And like I said, you can go and add some nice pretty branches. Take your time. These are the details that maybe matter to you. Add some wheat branches, kind of going over the road. Just simple like that. Take your time. The beginning part is really fun and easy. Then you're just going to add these little touches at the end. Don't overwork it. Just go in and splatter a little bit. And the best part is when you remove it. So I have like a little shadow kind of happening there with the trees. It's kind of fun just to play with a little shadow. I did gray. Sometimes I do blue. I might do a little gray in here. Oops. Kind of like happening on the edge here. Diffuse it a little bit. You can add a little more shadows kind of coming out this way. Right? Just changing it up a little bit. And that's that. So I'm going to remove my tape and reveal the beautiful painting. Didn't take much time at all. Just have fun playing with water, washing in the color, moving and mushing it around, and you have a cute little fall foliage. And like I said, you could have turned it into a Christmas scene if you didn't put the yellow in there. And I might end tweaking up a little bit right here. Just adding a little color going this way. You know, I'll have to look back and see what it needs. So it doesn't look so like weird. This little line here, and then maybe a little bit back here. Little browns back here. Oops, I don't want to go over my white line. I like that nice hard edge. Just to balance it. But that's it. That's our sweet little mystical fall foliage, like, you know, like a dewy morning. I hope this was fun. Hope you learned something. You know, just the bleeding part back here is so super easy, and just putting little branches, bleeding this, and then just filling in the color. And the road could be going curved this way, it could be going this way. You could put a little house in there, even a little animal or a stump. Oh, I didn't do the fence, but hey, we can put the fence in. All right, guys, thank you so much for stopping by my channel. I hope you had fun painting or learning something. If not, well, hey, what can I tell you? Take care, have a great day, and I'll speak to you soon.